You're listening to the We Are Libertarians podcast network. Find all of our shows at wearelibertarians.com.
Are you a diehard comic book collector?
Or maybe a lapsed fan?
Maybe even someone who has never picked up a comic book in their life. Hi, I'm Remso Martinez.
And I'm Mark Claire. Every single Wednesday at the Second Print Comics podcast, Remso and I take a deep dive into the storylines, character arcs, moments, and events that made us the fans we are today.
Tune in every Wednesday for new episodes available on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and wherever else podcasts are available.
Check out more from the Second Print Comics podcast at secondprintcomics.com.
Prepare yourself. You're on the run with Remso W. Martinez.
That's next hour or so.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
Oh, shit.
Okay. What?
No, I just said it's being recorded. I was joking about the little voice thing. It's like, oh my God.
Yeah, I don't like the women talking to me either. Okay.
This is going to be our cold open.
Actually, this is literally the cold open because I thought of this question before I made that misogynistic statement. I'm canceled. But I do have a question, Dale. And this is literally, like, I was on the phone with a friend a moment ago. He's going through some life stuff, but he's also starting a big project. And I won't get into details, but I think this is a good segue into what we're going to talk about. Do you think that men and women are born with the same inherent value?
Yes.
Why?
Because they're both created in the image of God. Despite the fact that Eve came out of the rib.
They're equal, or do they have the same value?
I would say yes, and that's not SJW bullshit. I would. Now the way you can look at that though, the other way is with men. We go to war. We do the hard shit. We get up on ladders. We get on lifts and are terrified for 2 hours and 15 minutes, and we come back down and deal with it. But so you could say where men are more expendable, but that's one way of looking at it. I don't know if that makes any sense.
That makes a ton of sense, and I mean, it gets tricky because of how it's phrased sometimes. I mean, I'll say I'm a feminist. I think a woman can be president. I think women are capable of screwing up America as much as all the male presidents have. So, I don't want to sound like I want to leave the ladies out of that. But it's like, I've been watching some stuff and reading some things. I didn't intend on like jumping into like the gender discussion online and stuff like that. But I believe that inherently as human beings we are equal. Under the law, we should be equal. But I don't believe that men and women are born with inherent value. And this is leaving the whole, male privilege and shit out of it. Women are born with value. Women can give birth. Women are more maternal. Women are born of beauty. Even ugly chicks are born of beauty as somebody. But, men aren't. Men are only... I feel that men... And this isn't like a recent thing. I think this has been the history of civilization. Men are only seen as valuable by what they do and what they create.
Yeah.
And I think that, I don't think that's a controversial statement, but this whole thing of, he's got a great personality. He's a nice person. It's like, yeah, but that's not the same as valuable, because I know a lot of, very nice people who don't provide value to themselves or to others.
Yep.
And, men, while I definitely think that, being a homemaker and staying at home is a good option for women, I'm not saying that that's good for every woman. There's a reason why it's still stigmatized to be like a stay-at-home father or something. And I think that's just as admirable. But the thing is, we'll never, no matter how progressive society gets, that stigma will never leave, because we only see men as what value they really bring. And seeing a man in like a homemaker role, while that can be just as important, that's not the same in many ways.
No, it's not. But here's the other thing with that homemaker role. If there's a stay-at-home dad, while he's watching the kid, he can put the kid in the bouncy thing, and if he has the skills, he can go fix shit around the house if he has to. Gotta lay some trim down, or fix a hole in the ceiling or whatever. I mean, if he's capable, he can still do that. I mean,
he could start an online business.
Yep. do any number of things.
Yeah, I mean, it's not about like whether he goes into an office or wears a suit or not. It's about what he brings and what he creates. And I know some women who like definitely like that whole trad conservative type of thing, but they would even be triggered by me saying that. And it's just like, no, if you're a woman, you don't even have to be a 10. You could just do a little bit of work on yourself, very minimal work, honestly. And if you wanted to go out and never work a day in your life, that is actually open for you. You can go ahead and find somebody who can provide that for you. You're a guy, and even if you're like a Keanu Reeves, a good-looking dude, you can't do that. It's not the same.
Yep.
Because women, just by being born, have more value inherent than men. Now, could women go and create more value? Yeah, but it's not equal on the offset.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm just curious, what brought that on? Because I thought I was gonna be hawking orthodoxy for an hour.
Oh well, I thought this will jump into my orthodox stereotypes, but it's just he gets. I don't want to say he specifically, but I know a lot of men who are content creators who get upset that they put a lot of work into stuff, but they'll never be as successful as a woman wearing a push-up bra streaming video games online. And I'm like, you're right. It's not the same. And I'm not going to say that it's ever going to be the same, but know what you're getting into.
Yep.
Don't be upset. You can be upset about it. I can be upset about it sometimes, but it's not even worth it because you're not on the same playing field.
Nope. Unless you want to, well, I'm not going to get into that whole mess. I was going to make this is not going to get edited, so I'm not going to say what I was going to say.
There was a show, there's a podcast I listen to called Fresh and Fit. I like those guys. I don't agree with everything they say, but it's a really cool show. And they had a kickboxing world champion, Andrew Tate, on. And Andrew Tate is basically doing this like, one-to-one debate with like this OnlyFans chick who is...
Why is he debating her? Why isn't he just watching her? I mean, I don't advocate for that sort of thing, but just
content needs to be created somehow, and they thought that this would be the way. So like this guy, Andrew Tate, grew up poor. His dad was a world chess champion, stuff like that. Went on to be a kickboxing world champ. He calls himself a webcam pimp. He actually started like a webcam business for other women where he basically managed it. And then he got into real estate and other things. So this guy is a multi-millionaire and he plays up this online Playboy lifestyle. So here you have somebody who actually created a bunch of shit. And whether you like his personality or not, he created a ton of value for himself and others. And he's arguing with this woman who's an attractive woman, but everything she does is about, like, she's not a porn star, but she's like, I could show my tits on TV and make $100,000. And she's like, who are you to talk to me? I made $1 million yesterday. And it's just like, yes, she's a very rich person. People obviously, quote, care about what she does, but it's like, that's not the same. She was born with it. Am I saying she obviously goes to the gym? Yeah, she goes to the gym. She puts on makeup. She knows how to make herself marketable, and she does things that she will make her money. But to say that, if let's say they have the same net worth, to say that she's putting as much value into the world as this guy, it's not the same.
Yeah. Well, to bring it back to a little bit of orthodoxy, what she does crosses at least 2 commandments, if not more. Coveting and adultery, but I'll just leave it at that.
Well, we'll jump into it now. I'm glad that we went ahead and just pissed off a lot of people.
My God, Remso, I got to say this about you first. I was screwing around with some of my friends at church today. We at coffee hour, and I told you about that. And we basically gather up. We're a non-criminal gang, and we basically just say shit to each other.
They're all white people, so you don't have to worry.
No, I have a tack end onto this. We just say shit to each other to make each other laugh or uncomfortable, and then laugh, like I said in our conversation before the show. But then after all of that, what wound up happening was one of the vegans that's actually a vegan who's part of our church. He came up to me and said, "Hey," he basically said to me, "Hey, tone it down with your voice because you might offend people that don't know you." And I'm like, great. And then I just told him, look, they should be able to tell by my tone and cadence that I'm just fucking around. And I was a little more polite in church. And granted, hopefully I'm not already like scuttling the sale of orthodoxy here by the language I use. I'm a tradesman. I fix things. I break things and fix them, and I use that language on the job, and I use it in everyday life, and I make the priest laugh when I do it. So go away, whatever. But yeah,
I had a friend of mine comment the other day. She's like, you're so brave. She's an actual friend, so this wasn't patronizing, but she's like, you're so brave for doing a podcast. I'd be so afraid I would say something that would get me in trouble. And I'm like, the people that would get me in trouble never listen to the show. And even if they wanted to find something to get me in trouble, they wouldn't be able to get past 20 seconds.
Yeah. Well, what I was going to say is I think I thought I was like way to the ceiling with pissing people off, but you're just like at a fucking whole other level. And I appreciate that about you, man. So
you try and get canceled by the media twice before you're 30, and you have a very skew view of the world. I'm just at the point where it's just like, I just have to fucking survive, and I can be happy. Happiness is a choice. But
yes,
I wanted to bring you on today. One thing I really like doing is I like looking into different worldviews and religions and stuff like that. Two reasons. One, I think it's good for listeners because it broadens their perspective, but it also makes them ask themselves a lot of questions. And my thing is, like, it doesn't matter what answer you find as long as you answered the question, because a lot of people are just afraid of questions, regardless of the answer. One thing I always hate is people who are like, oh, well, I'm open-minded and this type of stuff. But it's like you get them to stand on an issue, and they either just try and avoid it at all costs, which means they don't have an answer, or they do actually have an answer and they're not as open-minded. But it's also been like, I've been on a spiritual journey for many years, and I think a lot of the questions and the struggles that I've had throughout the process are a lot of things that a lot of other men deal with. And I think men deal with this in much more of like a harsher way than women do. I think men are more willing to have like an existential crisis than women typically do. It's just an observation. But like I am firmly rooted on a couple of things. I'm a biblical Christian. I believe that and I'm down to like the young Earth theory. Like Genesis is for me history, and when it comes to the tenets of Christianity, and I already know one thing you and I are going to disagree on. Like I'm Trinitarian, believe that Jesus Christ was both man and God.
Yep, we're on the same page with that. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, so like I've been bringing people on, and you reached out after the episode of Hody Johns about Mormonism, and Hody's one of those weird people that I've met where it's like he started on one way and they went to Mormonism, but then he left the LDS Church, and he still has like a blended Mormon theology. And I look at it and I'm like, I don't know how you justify it, but if it makes sense to you, then I'm not going to criticize it. You know where I stand. Hopefully you'll continue to figure things out. But when it comes to just Christianity alone, because I want to eventually get onto other religions, I want to bring on somebody from different spiritualities. Orthodoxy's always confused the living shit out of me.
Really?
And here's where I'm gonna preface, and then just go ahead and blow my mind on shit.
Sure.
You guys think you're the Holy Catholic Church, the Holy Apostolic Catholic Church,
the Holy Catholic and Apostolic Church. Yes. Right. It's in the creed.
Right. So you think that, and you guys believe in the Trinity, or is that like yes. Greek Orthodox? You don't?
No, all Orthodox Christians believe in the Trinity.
Okay, so I'll ask this: what made you guys split from the Roman Catholic Church, and what are some of the things that kind of make you different on that more like high church, more Orthodox end? Because I get so bogged down with like the dates and everything.
I am so glad that you asked me this. Okay, so if you put the Roman Catholic Church and the Eastern Orthodox Church side by side,
is that the same as Greek?
Yes. Okay, so let me back up a little more. Every church in the Orthosphere, which is basically Eastern Europe, and over into India, we all pretty much believe the same things. We're all Trinitarians. We're all creedal. We believe in the scriptures, and we have a broader tradition. So we're basically on the same page in those terms of what's on the paper, communion, it's the actual blood and body, but we don't try to explain it like the Roman Catholics do. A lot of the other differences are just cultural, or the food, or that sort of thing. So that's pretty much the only differences. Like with the Iraqi Orthodox, or the Chaldeans, you might say, it was literally a semantic issue between like the Indian Orthodox and the rest of the Orthodox that they got lost in translation.
So it's like Coptic Christians. They're Orthodox, except the difference is that they're going to do everything in Egyptian.
It was a language barrier. All of it was a language barrier. So I would say, and I'm not a priest, obviously. I'm not wearing the clerical collar, but I've taken the mindset from my time as a Protestant to be kind of the Minuteman Christian, where like, yeah, I'll read the Bible, I'll study the theology, and know the things that I need to know to do spiritual combat, but it's not my life's work. I'm a painter and a tradesman in real life. So that's that kind of sets the table for Orthodoxy. Now, getting down to where the split happened, basically before the actual split happened, the church was one, obviously, in that area of Europe. What wound up happening is the Pope, and this is a very rough and dirty version of it. I'm not going to Google a bunch of shit.
Give me the drunk history edition. That's the only way I learn shit.
Yeah, well, cheers. So what wound up happening was, I think it wasn't 1066. It was, I want to get the dates right, but it was sometime before 1066, where basically the Roman Catholic patriarch, the Pope, as he's now known commonly, sent a papal bull to the Patriarch of Constantinople, and the Patriarch of Constantinople sent letters back to him. And basically, it was just those two accusing each other of not doing X, Y, and Z correctly. And that's how the split happened initially. And, for whatever reason, the Pope in Rome tried to claim judicial authority over all of the churches. And the Patriarch of Constantinople said, no, F off. Since I'm talking religion, I might mute my swearing a little bit, but basically said, no, F off. It is a primacy of honor rather than a primacy of jurisdiction. Basically, everyone, all of the bishops and patriarchs on an equal footing. It's just lower bishops would defer to the patriarchs on matters of dogma and rulings and whatnot. So that's kind of how it all went down. They basically were talking past each other, and then you have this split between the Eastern Christians and the Western Christians. And I realize you're not gonna upload the video, but basically that's what wound up happening. And then that's basically how the split happened. Was there was a disagreement over who's in charge, and that's where it ended up going.
Was it like on grounds of faith, or was it on grounds of like legal jurisdiction?
Yes, because the thing of it is, Peter went to Rome, and Christ said, "Upon this rock I will build my church," and that gave the Roman pontiff the incentive to say, "I'm the boss." Again, wait a second. I think this is where you and I come at a different thought on this. When Christ says that to Peter, do you think that he actually meant by Peter, I will build the church? That's something I haven't gotten into. I mean, I think it may have been Peter's statement of faith that he's going to build the church. That's one interpretation of it. That's super nuanced, and I haven't gotten into all of what that means.
Yeah. I tend to lean more Protestant on that, and that's where I disagree with my Catholic friends, because they're like, that's where it all kind of descends from. And I'm like, well, does it mean specifically Peter? Not to downgrade his role, not to downgrade his importance, but does it really specifically mean him? Right.
And that's where, and the thing of it is, that's a parallel disagreement between basically, this is where the Protestants are on the same side as the Orthodox. Was it the statement of faith, or was it Peter in Rome? Yeah, that's something I've largely either ignored or just haven't really addressed in my own philosophical worldview. So that's all I have to say on that. I mean, basically, it was two men with egos going at each other, and then there was a split, and then you have all the fallout from that, where the Turks came in and wiped the floor with Constantinople, and they tried to get support from the West, but it was the Greeks that did this. They didn't want to submit to the Pope. And I came into Orthodoxy through a Greek Orthodox church.
And now we call it Istanbul.
No, it is, damn it. Fuck, I can't stop swearing. No, it is Constantinople. I'm not even going to say what I think of the Turks, even though I've never really met a Turkish person.
So on my fiance's side of the family, her brother married into a Greek family, and I don't know who it was specifically, but they on their honeymoon went to Greece, and they met the actual Greek members of the family. And the brother is training to be a Baptist minister, and at one point they were talking theology and stuff, and it got into the histories, and I guess the one super elder Greek cousin or whatever was like, underneath Istanbul is a Greek minaret. And there are Greek columns everywhere. It will always be Constantinople. And it's like, I don't understand how somebody could still be so upset about something that happened so many centuries ago like that.
You know what?
I'm not discounting it. I just think the whole way, and I probably bastardized the entire thing. And if they heard this, they would get mad because no, he used a different word. But it's like it's kind of like that. It's hilarious, but that definitely does tie to how the culture evolves in that sense.
Before we get into the theology, I don't think he said minaret. There is a statue under the ground of Constantine the 11th, who was the last emperor of Constantinople, and one of the legends is that one of these days that statue is going to come to life and restore the Eastern Roman Empire.
That's metal.
It is metal. I have some stories in the back of my mind to write that, like make it and sell it to DC, but I've been painting so much I haven't had the time to actually write it up. But
that would be so sick. I can just imagine like Metallica in the background.
Oh yeah.
No wonder the Greeks get so fired up about that.
Well, the thing of it is, that's what I don't understand about the Greeks, because they originated logic, and logic is supposed to be, kind of from emotion, but they get fired up about things. It's a Mediterranean thing.
It's almost, and I think this is why a lot of people in the West, it's hard to really pin down Orthodox Christianity, because it's how much of it is really theology and how much is it just based off ethnic identity and culture.
There is no, I'm actually, okay, so I'll reveal this to the internet.
I was about to say, because your name does not imply that.
No. Okay, so we'll delve into some of my personal history. So my biological father was at least half Jewish, if not more. But the thing of it is, his parents were refugees from the Second World War. And my grandparents that I know were German Lutherans that adopted him because they couldn't have children. And so that's where I'm at. I'm at least half to a quarter Jewish. So I have some of the Mediterranean features with the hair and the olive skin during the summer. And I've been mistaken. My wife's grandfather, God rest his soul, said that I look like I'm Mexican. Sorry for the nasally laugh. I need to actually, but no.
Okay.
But No, I have some Mediterranean features, and there's probably some ties to Orthodoxy somewhere in there. And then on my mother's side, it's all Northern European, Scotch, Swedish, all that stuff. So I don't know what I am at this point. I'm just like a person with, passive aggressive tendencies as, passive aggressive Jew tendencies and shitty genes, and then like the will to conquer. I need to report this to my therapist, actually. But anyway,
that would be something worth taking a note about.
Yeah, well, I got it right here.
So at one point, I know that for most of your life, you were Protestant.
Yes.
What type of Protestant?
That is I'll try to give you the notes on this because I really want to get to Hawking Orthodoxy. I have icons I want to show you and all of this. But,
so you were an undercover Baptist too.
Well, what wound up happening was because my dad was born into a Lutheran family, they had me baptized as a Lutheran as a baby. And then this and that happened. My parents were basically like Adam Carolla's parents, just a couple of fuckwits. And I'm being a little harsh, but that's the drunk history version of me. And they tried to send me to a couple of different churches in town on Sunday school so they could have a break from me. And, I liked the Christian ideals and, this and that. And then I wound up on a playground where I met a friend named Jonathan. I'll just leave it at that. And he was wearing a hat, much like my Peaky Blinders hat, but it looked more like the hats that Mario and Luigi wear. And I'm like, hey man, you have a cool hat.
Oh, so he wasn't like a cowboy Jew.
What's that?
It wasn't like the cowboy Jews.
No.
The ascetics?
No, it wasn't any of that, as far as I know. So I started going to church with this friend that I met on the playground and was introduced to the Evangelical Free Church, which is basically like 5 degrees left of the Baptist because they would allow drinking. And then from there, basically came up with them and my sworn family for about, I'm going to say, up to high school, up till I went off to college, to Liberty University, which I went to. And then became a Calvinist and eventually Presbyterian. And then this part I might take a little longer on. I ran into the CREC church, the Confederation of Reformed Evangelicals, where they practiced pedo communion, baby communion, and pedo baptism, baby baptism. And so by the time I met my wife, I was studying this as a theological issue. She and I were kind of at loggerheads on it. So I did some more research into it and found that there was a precedent in the Orthodox Church for giving infants communion. And so I'm like, okay, this is precedent in church history.
This is like something you brought up on a date?
No. This is the pedo communion thing. That was it might have been something that was brought up on a date, but we were fairly serious when we met each other. I mean, it took us about 6 months to decide we wanted to be together.
Wow.
And yeah, so it was brought up. It wasn't even brought up on a date. It was brought up in discussions with each other. And so this was at home and we were like separated. Like I'm compressing the story a lot, but by the time, we were able to date and marry and all of that, it had been some years since I'd met her, but I was trying to suss this out. And then that's when I discovered Orthodoxy. And I'm like, okay, so there's precedent. Fine, whatever. We'll just leave it at that. I'll bring it to her and we'll talk about it. But I kept digging and digging. And so finally I'm like, wait, I'm living in East Moline, Illinois, not to dox myself, but there's a Greek Orthodox.
Nobody wants to go to Illinois anyway.
Yeah, fuck Illinois. So, and sorry to my sworn family, they have a house in Illinois still, but they don't like it.
They all have
they
flaws.
You fuck off. You do not talk about my family that way. How fucking dare you?
I love it. Every person I've met from Illinois is like, "Oh, I'm from Chicago," and it's like, "Okay, what part?" Well, not really. It's like coming from Northern Virginia. Where are you from? D.C. Oh, where in D.C.? Well, not actually D.C.
Tangent. I've been watching The Blacklist, which centers around D.C.
Yeah.
What's that?
How do you like it?
I fucking love it, and I hate to say it, I love Ray Remington, and don't fucking spoil me on anything because I've already spoiled myself on a couple.
I've only gotten through halfway the first season because I started watching it before I moved here, so it's on my list of things to binge.
I'm on season 4.
Oh yeah, I'm so far behind you.
All right, so back to the point. Where was I? Wife, Erica.
The orthodoxy makes sense.
So yes, and well, the thing of it is, I thought it made sense. I went and met the priest. He thought I was some fucking college student trying to like do a multicultural. I'm like, no, I'm interested in your religion. I didn't actually get that rude with him, but I'm just like, no, I'm actually interested. And so he and I talked, and he gave me a couple books, and I read them. I'm like, holy shit, this is the thing. This is it. And I'm not trying to diminish anybody else's come to Jesus moment in whatever religion they're in. But for me, and it starts on a few things. The continuity of dogma. In Protestantism, everything changes between 1 to 50 years. I mean, it just changes constantly. Whether you have a church split or you have one denomination breaking off from another. And so many theological issues are resolved in Orthodoxy. For instance, how many eschatological theories are there in the Protestant world?
Oh, how much time do you have?
Let's compress it like I'm trying to.
You've got, I mean, name a day of the week, and they're trying to figure it out. And this is my, I'll ground it on this because I've brought it up before, but it's like my issue with Protestantism is that everyone is their own priest.
Yes.
And that, we can just look at, I think it's a Sanctum Sector. Like we can just look at the Bible alone for it. And it's like, yeah, the answers are there, but there's also like hundreds of thousands of years of other history that you need to understand the context of what is happening. So all that is basically thrown out. That, and there's such a disdain for high church traditions and everything that what you're doing is you're shedding away the oral tradition of Christianity, but you're also really diminishing it. So that way it just becomes kind of like a virtue signaling contest. So it gets to the point where it's like when that happens, like each time somebody at like, a church potluck has a disagreement with somebody, they go and they start their own church.
Yep.
And then there's the biggest thing for me, and this is why I've just really like I'm a die on this hill type of guy. It's like if communion, which is one of the only super sacred things we hold dear, if that is not blood and body, then it's nothing. And I will fight anybody on that.
It's a snack. It's a snack at that point.
Yeah, I mean, well, we're in agreement. I take it a step further. I've told this to people. It's like, okay, so is Jesus a liar? And they drop their meal.
Oh my God.
No, you use that. I'm like, so are you suggesting that Jesus is a liar? And they're like, what? How could you say that? I'm like, well, if Jesus is God, then God, everything he speaks into existence. He spoke the world into existence. So when he said, this is my blood and this is my body, whether they were physically consuming blood and flesh is not even relevant. What matters is that in that moment, it is what he says it is. So if it's not that, then is he a liar? And they flip their shit.
I'm not in the habit of trolling or correcting Protestants. I leave them be because they share the three things that unite Catholicism, Orthodoxy, and Protestantism: the Trinity, the Bible, and the consubstantiality of I fucked it up. The
death and resurrection.
Death and resurrection, and the fact that Christ is God and man at the same time. So more than three things, but that's why I don't mess with them a whole lot. I'll like throw subtle hints in, and even with my sworn family, when they ask me to pray, I don't do the long, Protestant prayer. I do the 3-second, Lord Jesus Christ, our God, bless the food and drink of your servants, and all of that, and they're fine with it. I know I'm going off on a tangent. One time, my sworn father.
We got time.
my sworn father actually extended the prayer and said some Protestant things, and I'm like, why? Because the thing of it is, everybody in Protestantism hates the person that waxes philosophical during prayer before a meal. And it's just like, shut up so we can eat. You know?
Yeah.
So, hell, I'm trying to think of...
Yeah, so I mean, that's my issue with Protestantism. And, you know, it's like, why... You know, for the most part, I mean, like, I was baptized Catholic. Like, my father tried, but I'm pretty sure at one point he was just like, I give up on this child. And, you know, it wasn't that I suddenly stopped being, you know, a believer. It's just that I don't think the whole Catholic thing is going to work for me. But, you know, the thing is, and this is why, like, I see this, I see this now, and it bothers me more than ever before, because, like, I don't want to get into, like, you know, the black pill or, like, post-libertarian shit. Nobody who doesn't know that gives a shit about that. But it's like, I look at the world right now, and I'm like, where is society succeeding, and where is society failing? And right now, as much as I am a defender of Western civilization has really chosen suicide. And when I look at the East, when I look at Eastern Europe, and even when I can look at, like, you know, fundamentally Islamic countries, regardless of religious difference or anything like that, they're not having their freaking state departments put out gender pronoun day. They're not literally, you know, trying to apologize for, like, murderers, serial killers, and rapists and pedophiles. Whereas that is shit that's happening here. And it's like, when I look at, you know, Orthodox Christian nations, it's like, yeah, the governments might be corrupt as hell. There might be a lot of other shit going on that is not perfect. But in terms of, like, an emphasis on the family matters, civil institutions matter, and some of these things are just not debatable, it's like we have freed ourselves up, and we have loosened ourselves up so much that when even our churches can't get grounded on basic biblical shit, no wonder the problems we're having exist. You know, I mean, I was a member of the United Methodist Church, and it has just become such a feral monster that it is making things worse for everybody in that sphere.
Wow. First of all, can we take an editorial pause, because
I'm going to go fill up a drink too. Folks, we're going to take a minute and be back.
I had to use the can.
Oh, I was like, you know, if we're going to do this any further, I've got to get some bourbon at least. I could say that as like a good Southerner, since I have moved up north, my bourbon consumption has not gone down.
Yep. I have Johnny Walker Red.
This is okay. Like ironically, I have the same bottle and I grabbed that, but this one's a little bit older and I want to go open it when a friend comes visits me next month. But I don't know why I chose it, but I went to Trader Joe's and I got like this Trader Joe's bourbon, and I
broke a cigarette.
Oh, cry more. But like I feel like this already looked like really pale. So I was like, you know, I think this is gonna be kind of weird. So I put in some drops of water in there, and this is gonna be the first time we'll do an on-air review of me trying Trader Joe's bourbon.
Hey, clink.
Cheers, clink.
Cheers, clink. So, fuck. Where the hell were we? Oh yeah, the Methodist Church. All right, do your review.
Have you ever tried Evan Williams?
At some point, yes.
This is better than Evan Williams. And Evan Williams is shit. So like this is just a step above Evan Williams. I'm not buying that again. I'll finish it, but I'm not buying that again. Okay. We can move on. Okay, the United Methodist Church.
Wow, because you mentioned that being like basically a rat hole of cats and dogs fighting
The
with each
United
other.
Methodist Church is the Evan Williams of mainline Protestantism.
Oh my gosh. I don't know if I should say anything about this, but no, I'm not. Someone I know who is close to me is a minister in that church. I'm not going to identify them because if they happen to find this, there will be hellfire to pay.
The woman who really, and I do mean the woman who brought me back into Christianity was a United Methodist minister, still is. She's one of the sweetest women that's ever been born. I love her. My life is different because of her. But that doesn't change the fact that something isn't working. I don't blame her. I'm not going to blame women for it. I'm not going to blame a lot of things. My issue came down to like when we are debating whether or not scripture is God spoken or not, that's where it's like if you disagree with that, we're not going to be able to agree on anything else.
Well, it's basically a fight between the conservative camp of the United Methodist Church and the liberal branch, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's probably a little more complicated than that.
The liberal branch literally thinks that the Black Lives Matter movement is an extension of the Reformation. They believe, I shit you not. They believe that and that's just a very recent thing. They believe that you can.
I need harder drugs, Remso. This is all I've got.
You can be openly homosexual and be a minister within the church, and a bunch of other things, and it's just like, yeah, those were some of the biggest things. And it came down, and I wish more conservatives argued about this, but the liberal camp also believes that, books in the Bible are more allegories than they are actual spoken history. Now, don't get me wrong. Are there allegories in the Bible? Absolutely. The Bible is not just one thing. It's a collection of different things. It's history, it's poetry, it's instructions, it's songs, it's letters, it's a lot of things. So this idea that it's all just, maybe it's real, maybe it's not. It's like, if it's not real, then why would we have a freaking religion?
Well, here's the thing.
Say what you want about Scientology. Those people die on that hill. They believe their shit to a respectable degree.
Okay, so speaking of allegory, so the way the Orthodox view the 66 or 70 books of the Bible, depending on who you ask, it is a what would I call it? A reflection of God and man at the same time. Because the way we got those books was because the Holy Spirit was inspiring the ecumenical councils that were putting those books together. So it's a cooperation between God and man. Now, obviously, God would have overriding power, but at the same time, it's a reflection of Christ as to how those books were assembled. Now, the hacking off of other books, that's man's intervention. And, where it got down to 66 books.
Do you guys have the Maccabees?
Give me a second, actually. I think we do. I have where is my Orthodox Bible? Oh, it's downstairs. I'm not going to go get it. But yes, we do have the Maccabees. And that is some good reading. Let me just tell you.
I think it's good reading is history. That's one of the other things where it's like, yeah, I'll definitely be Protestant on this one. I don't know if it's like worthy of being in the Bible.
It's instructional. That's this is where there's a lot of nuance in orthodoxy with the books of the Maccabees and the other intertestamental books. They're instructional, but they don't hold the same weight as the actual Old and New Testament. Again, that's my, layman's way of interpreting it.
Yeah, that's how we basically look at it. Now, most people don't even look at the Maccabees as something that's ever existed, which I think is another one of those things where it's like you can say it's not the same, but it doesn't mean you have to just completely get rid of it.
It's not. It's nonsense, because the thing of it is the people that eventually got trapped by Jesus, so to speak, we're imposing the pagan will on the Jews, and then eventually they end up believing in the same God that the Jews do. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, I saw the Rugrats special. That makes sense.
The Rugrats special.
Oh man, you never saw the Rugrats special, the Maccababies?
No.
Yeah, well, I did in 1999, and that's how I first learned about it.
Oh God, what are we doing?
It made a lot of sense.
I have to look that up. That I'm actually going to make a note of that. Maccababies.
Yeah, just do Rugrats Maccabees. The Rugrats actually do a great job of telling you like Jewish history. Like they're phenomenal at that. But it's
babies. All right,
Maccababies.
I'll just leave it at that. So, all right. So, what other questions do you have? Because I have no time limit right now. I told my wife to stay out.
What really, like, after a time, so right now with like the Church of England, and over the last couple of years, I have definitely drifted more towards like the Anglican tradition.
Yep.
For both reasons of faith and reasons of history. I think I'm coming around to the idea that I think maybe, and I could be wrong, at least, and it splits hairs, because with Christianity, we're splitting hairs on a lot of things in terms of like, actual titles, but like at least for the purpose of this basic understanding, I think the Anglican Church had at one point been the Holy Apostolic Church, right around the time of Reformation. While I definitely do consider myself a Protestant to a large degree, I think that what went on in broader Europe with Lutheranism and others, and not even necessarily Lutheranism, but with Presbyterianism and with a lot of the other offshoots of Protestantism that came afterwards, it's like that there's not a lot of ground behind it. And I say that because, like, when we look at King Henry, for example, people like to bring up the fact that it's like, oh, this guy just wants a divorce. It's like, let's not simplify it too much. You had these like 100 years wars with France, and this king who has been titled the defender of the faith by the Pope is at a point where if he can't produce a male heir, then there are going to be a lot of issues for the Kingdom of England and with Europe as a whole. And at the same time, with bishops in England, they're pointing out the fact that, the church in Rome is kind of running afoul with a lot of shit. Luther agreed with those Anglican bishops, and Anglican is just British Catholic. So he agreed with a lot of them. So then you have the split. You have the Reformation and everything. I don't understand how you have all these people running around just basically trying to also redoctor Catholicism, Christianity, when we could just look at the facts that the defender of the faith has made a decision to make himself the head of the church, and he's allowing these Reformed bishops, these Anglican bishops, to really do what Luther wanted, which is to fix the Catholic Church in England.
Well, that's actually an interesting question, because
then you have another thing where it's like Saint Joseph of Arimathea went to the British Isles to spread Christianity, and there might be like, the
Holy Grail.
The Holy Grail, yeah, like King Arthur and the Holy Grail, like that's a whole other thing itself. That's treated as more legend than history. But like in terms,
you
of
might
just
as
the
well bring up
Reformation,
aliens at this point. Sorry to talk over you.
I think the Holy Grail might be in England. But that's
that's
a whole other thing. But like, so you have like this apostolic thing where it's like the Saint Joseph of Arimathea myth, and I think I feel comfortable calling it a myth. There's not really a lot to go off of with that. But, in terms of just this, in terms of like when the Church of England became the Church of England, I just would have thought that would have made more sense. But that's another thing where it goes into where other people not willing to jump on that because that's seen as more of like an ethnic, cultural change in a church versus a theological, faith-based church.
You have me on the back. You have me on the back foot in some ways, but the thing of it is, King Henry VIII, he is someone who basically threw a monkey wrench into apostolic succession in England. And the thing of it is, before before who the fuck? The guy that invaded England in 1066.
The French guy.
The Duke of Normandy, whatever. So England was basically Orthodox until he invaded. And so with the Catholic 1015 was when the split happened, I think, between the Roman Catholic and the Orthodox Church. You basically have King Henry throwing a monkey wrench. Are you sending me signals, Renzo?
No, I'm a very lightweight drinker, so I'm already starting to feel it.
Well, blame that on your jujitsu and losing weight. So
I am all types of feeling off today. I rolled my ankle yesterday during a private session. Then I did.
Oh, so you actually rolled it. You didn't break it.
I rolled it because I could feel my toes. I know a lot of people were voting for break just because they want to see that,
I didn't vote. I didn't vote. So
because you were smart and you were just like, well, I'll just let him make the announcement. Yeah. Yeah. All the weight cutting. So I could be in a better weight bracket so I could compete later next year. Yeah. It's making drinking a whole other challenge.
I want to come back to that offline if we have time, but,
yeah.
Okay, so basically
there's a lot of overlap between Christianity and jiu-jitsu. I don't know. I just said that just to say it.
All right, so let me get back to... All right, so basically King Henry VIII threw a monkey wrench into that whole thing after...
By calling himself the new head of the church?
Yes, because the thing of it is there's only one head of the church, and that's Christ. The Patriarch of Constantinople never claimed to be the head of the church. It was the whole thing of primacy of honor. And I know there's probably like linguistic things.
Yeah. Like I wouldn't say that like Henry was putting himself like above Christ, but he was basically saying that I am like God's emissary on earth. And if anyone's going to say that, if we're going to go bound to like, the divine right of kings and everything, and I'm not a monarchist, like if we're really looking at it, like the Church of England, even up to the Queen and everything this day, like they do a pretty good job of going back in genealogy.
Well, first of all, Spangle's going to yell at us for talking so much religion on this podcast.
You freaking monarchist.
I'm not a
monarchist. I'm just saying that.
Hey. So I'm only a monarchist, and I've shared this in the group. I'm only a monarchist if I have a shot at the throne. Otherwise, republic all day.
Yeah, like the only dictator could be me.
No, me.
Yeah. Well,
anyway.
You get what I mean.
All right, so...
Yeah, so like if anyone at that time is going to say that they have the right to reform God's church, and this is my problem with Luther. I don't think Luther was a bad guy. I think a lot of people attributed a lot of things to Luther that aren't necessarily accurate. And I think more people who understand this stuff really do identify it, because Luther was not trying to create a new church. He was not trying to replace the Catholic Church. Absolutely. He had 95 problems, but getting rid of the church was not one. And, when we look at everything that kind of comes after that, it's like... I'm not saying the apostles had flaws. Like everyone human has flaws, but like when you look at what comes out of that, there's a reason why the Church of England was pretty much able to stay pretty much united, and Protestantism throughout Europe is getting so messy. And this is before like the spread to the New World and everything.
Well, first of all, damn bro, because
you're heavy.
Yeah, it definitely, because anyway.
How many people do you know who will defend King Henry VIII?
No, I do not defend him, because he basically, I view King Henry VIII as someone that he just wanted to get his rocks off with a woman that would produce a male heir.
He wanted to prevent war. He's like, the French are going to go ahead and put a French king in charge of England if I can't get a male heir. I want to stop war. I want to prevent this.
I don't fucking care about England or France. I really don't. I want to hawk orthodoxy. So let me ask you this, Remso, before I try to dig into orthodoxy and do show and tell with the with some of my icons. That's my guy. When I got into the Orthodox Church, I was named after Saint George the Dragon Slayer.
That's cool.
It is cool. I've got a few other ones I'm going to show you.
Here's a question. So is he a saint?
Yes.
Are your saints the same as Catholic saints?
They are until the split.
So anything past the split, anyone in the Orthodox Church who was made a saint is probably not recognized in Roman Catholicism.
Yes.
Okay.
That's pretty much how it works. So I've got a few other ones I want to show you, but we'll save that for later. Yeah. Oh, fuck. Where were we?
King Henry was a cool dude. No,
he was not. He was a fucking bastard. He threw the monkey wrench into the whole thing of Caesaropapism, which is basically the state and the church coming together,
right,
being one thing. And there were some things in Germany about that, but whatever. And there were some insults between the Catholic and the Eastern Orthodox Church, proclaiming him as the Holy Roman Emperor, whatever. But before Henry took over, England and that whole area was Orthodox. And then traveling back, it was the French that imposed Catholicism on England. And fucking hell.
You know, the British spoke French before the French spoke French?
What?
If you actually look at the history of language in that part of Europe and the British Isles, English would not be spoken until after French was the primary language for so long.
That's fucking weird.
It is fucking weird.
All right. So, all right. Ask me another question about orthodoxy. Just random number generator.
Okay. So the church splits. How do you guys determine who saints are?
A lot of that comes down to local character. And by that, I mean, what was this person known for doing? And, what they did, if they exhibited divine power. And by that, I mean like the ability to heal, that sort of thing. Basically achieving salvation in this life. Now, the thing of it is that the difference between Protestants and Eastern Orthodox is Protestants.
Oh, we threw out the saints.
What? Yeah, I know.
Protestants. I'm not cool with that. I'm just saying that's what they did.
Except for the Lutherans.
Except for the Lutherans. I still walk around. So I've basically kind of like adopted, because I'm really a man without like a home church right now. I've basically adopted Saint Benedict as my patron saint. I'm big, I like Benedict. Saint Benedict the Exorcist. I mean, that's a man after my own heart.
Well, that's because you go into fucking houses that are like infested with demons and you try to fight them.
People are like, well, you're Protestant. Why do you believe in the saint? I'm like, because you see the shit I've seen, and you're gonna want one too.
The saint that you wear around your neck, was that Saint Anthony or which one was
Benedict.
That?
It's still
okay.
Benedict. It's
no. We talked about. I know we talked about that offline, but
I've got Saint Benedict and everything. Well, I have a Saint Michael pendant that I have on my backpack, but for different reasons. But everything that I have, like I do own a rosary, which freaks a lot of my Protestant friends out. Like I do.
Well,
own
they're
a rosary.
fucking idiots.
Yeah, like I have a rosary that has a Saint Benedict coin on there, like it does, and then I've got a Saint Benedict's metal bracelet that I've worn sometimes, especially when I've gone into situations when I was filming the TV show. But most of the time I do have a Saint Benedict necklace I do wear most of the time. And
That's awesome.
And I think, and here's my stance on saints, and I could be totally wrong, but my thing is like I don't pray to saints. I think the people that think that Catholics pray to saints, they don't understand how it works. Saints have been important to Christianity for a very long time, and it's less about them. Some people call it the Romification of Christianity, but it's like that's not necessarily it. You're not praying to saints. You're not believing that saints are on the same ground as Christ or anything. Saints were living embodiments of the best of what we could achieve when we put our full faith in God. And it's less about praying to them. It's more about remembering them and trying to channel that human bravery.
That is the most Orthodox thing that you've said. And somebody sent me a fucking voicemail. Why is my phone going off right now? Anyway, no. And that gives me something to grab onto, because with the saints, it's not so much that in the rough and dirty saying of it. Yeah, you're praying to saints, but at the same time, you're asking another human to pray for you and put the request into Christ's ear. Whether you pray to the Virgin Mary, you're asking her to bend her son's ear, which that's a whole paradox in and of itself. You're asking her to tell Christ what's going on. Now, and you can do that with any saint or your patron saint. Go ahead.
Do you guys put Mary on the same scale that the Catholics do, where it's like she's a celestial being?
No, not like they do. She's not co-redemptrix.
What I really, okay, I'm glad you say it. What I really like about Orthodox Christianity is what I love about seeing about your churches and stuff like that is like your artwork carries around everything that really shows the best about your side of the Christian family tree. And like when I've seen some Greek Orthodox churches, it's like Mary is in places that I typically would not have seen Mary. And I would typically think that, oh, that's more of a Catholic thing. Like I've seen a Greek Orthodox painting of Moses talking to the burning bush, and in the bush you see Mary and baby Jesus. And it's like, what does that mean? It's like, well, everything is leading to Christ. In this situation, we see Christ not born yet, so we'll show him as an infant, but he comes through Mary, therefore Mary is there. And I'm like, I feel like a lot of grasping is kind of happening, but it's not the same as, oh, Mary is one of God, which is what I thought when I kind of saw that. And I'm like, that's kind of Catholic in a way.
It's not grasping. It's the fact that the Holy Mother is the bridge from the world outside of time to this world. We view her as the new Ark of the Covenant, if that makes sense.
Really?
Yeah. Boom.
Okay,
I blew your mind finally.
Yeah, that's I never knew you thought that. That's interesting. Why do you think that?
Because if you look at the Ark of the Covenant, I need to knock it off after this one, but the Virgin Mary is what? What?
This is the perfect image. It's like we're about to start getting into Orthodox theology with your cigarette.
The thing of it is, Orthodox people smoke.
Is it because you don't want to live longer?
No, it's because we like to fucking Remso. Oh my God. The next wall pool party. I know I threatened some.
We should have a fight club at the next one.
Yeah, no, I threatened Vaughn the other day, and yeah, I don't want to threaten you because you know
I don't want to
jiu-jitsu.
fight Dakota. Dakota's built.
Oh yeah. Stand by for tactical, get after it. Which is my forbidden saying.
How Where do you draw that conclusion that, okay, at what point is Mary considered part of the ark?
Because, okay, so you have in the Old Testament, as I was saying, the ark contained the cloud of glory, as well as the staff of Aaron and the 10 commandments and all of that. And the cloud of glory would follow the ark this way and that, wherever it went. Mary is the ark of the Virgin Mary. Sorry, my Protestantism is coming out. She's the new Ark of the Covenant because she carried Christ, which, if you believe in the whole thing about the Old Testament and the appearances of the angel of the Lord and the cloud of glory, that was God the Son communicating to the people of Israel. And she carried God the Son for 9 months and then gave birth to him. So that's why she is considered the new Ark of the Covenant, if that makes any sense.
Okay, that makes sense.
I'm surprised
yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm surprised in your travels in the Church of England, you haven't come across that, because there are a lot of parallels between the two.
It's one of those things where it's like it exists, and I think I may have heard of it, but it was never seen as like essential doctrine. And you know, and I just want to be transparent because of the pandemic and everything else and moves and shit. Like I have not been to an Anglican Catholic service yet. I've watched a ton, but like these are questions that I've wanted to get into on that. What can you explain the difference between like the church militant and the church triumphant? Because I think that's actually really cool, and I wish more people would understand that.
Well, in my view, the church militant is those of us here on earth that are trying to convert and, you know, lay out the table for people to come to Christianity. And the church triumphant is the saints and the folks that have died in the faith in a state of grace, and they're in heaven. That's as best as I can explain it.
I feel like with Protestantism, it's like even though we believe in heaven, I think a classic error where I see a lot of people jump on, especially after like a loved one has died or something, is that they do really, while they won't say it and while they won't admit it, there's definitely that point where they're definitely like, oh yeah, death is death. And it's like, I still believe that people who have passed on to heaven, while maybe not always, maybe not in every situation, to say that there's a complete and final disconnect between their intervention on earth is I don't believe in that. And that's not me saying ghosts. That's me, you know, kind of leading on the idea of like, you know, guardian angels and stuff like that.
Well, the thing of it is, there is a St. Paul in Hebrews 13, and I don't remember the verse. I think it's like 6 to 7. I could be wrong. But he talked about the cloud of witnesses. And he was using the analogy of the Roman Colosseum as an analogy for how God views us in the world. And all of the witnesses are in the Colosseum. And I realize you can't see my hands moving around, but Christ is in the emperor's box. And then you have all of the people that are sainted, or, you know, all the people that are sainted. And you have people intervening. Okay, fuck off notification. Sorry.
We do this live, folks. We do this live.
That's why I was like, anyway. So the universe is basically a Roman Colosseum. Christ is in the emperor's box, and he watches everything. And what was the point that I was trying to make?
The other people, who's in the stands?
People who have passed on, the saints, people who can intervene. That's how it works. And the intervention of the saints is, you know, when when Orthodox Christians pray to the saints and ask for help, they jump down and help however they can, if they can. But we are also in a position to invoke their power to help us with things on earth.
Is that uniquely an Orthodox Christianity thing? You guys are the only ones where I've actually seen that.
I would say yes. I mean, I can't speak to my Catholic brethren, but yeah, because they talk about in the Protestant world, they talk about the cloud of witnesses, and I don't know what that means in the Protestant world, but when I got into Orthodoxy, I was able to understand that a little better. But it's been so long since.
How does somebody become a member of your church?
You go talk to the priest, and you excuse me. You go visit and you participate in some services. Editorial note. I'm starting to lose it, Remso.
No, we're wrapping up in a minute because I gotta go take a shit in a moment. But
oh God.
No, I mean,
okay. So basically, go visit the church, talk to the priest, and tell them that you've been, searching and you want to join, and then you'll go into catechism, and he'll basically take you through however many months of catechism or years, depending on the person.
Years.
And it depends. It really depends.
Okay.
It depends on how motivated the person is.
Who do you have to pay?
You don't have to pay anyone. Remso!
Well, this has been awesome. I learned a ton, and you and I have wanted to do this for a while, and it's why I love doing episodes like this, because
did you really? Because
it's
I realized
one of those things where it's like I know a lot, and while I didn't, like when it came to like Anglicanism and like the Church of England and stuff like that, like it was one of those things where it was like I really had to question. It's like, okay, this is what I believe right now. How can I defend it? That's not King Henry.
No, it's not. It's St. George.
Oh.
I'm just showing these off because I got these here because I want to show them off. I thought we were going to have a more linear discussion, but that's my Western side coming out. Don't mess with this guy.
He's showing me Jesus.
I'm showing him the Christ Pantocrator.
What's that?
That's the name of the icon.
Oh. So your Jesus never smiles like in a Baptist Sunday school?
No. He's very stoic. Even though stoicism was a pagan concept, but that's another podcast for another time.
Dale, thank you so much, man. This has been a blast. I'm labeling this episode "The Drunk History of Orthodox Christianity," and I hope more people, especially Christians, can just understand like. And this is where I land on it. And I never want to say that what I believe in a moment is something that I'm definitely going to believe later. I mean, I have a very strict base for this stuff, but like when it comes to a lot of this stuff, like I don't think when you die, God is going to give you a theology exam. I think ultimately Christ is going to know who you are as a person. And that's one of those things. I know you're grimacing right now, but it's I have
a thing. I have a thing for you. I know you're trying to wrap up. I'm sorry you have to take a shit, but the thing of it is,
I've got fabric cleaner in case I shit on my couch.
The Orthodox version. I will leave you with this. The Orthodox version of hell is that we do it to ourselves. And here's why I say that, because God is. He is a warming sun. If you die in sin, it's like applying a sun accelerator onto yourself. But if you die in a state of grace, that's like suntan lotion. If that makes any sense.
That makes more
So-
sense than what I was going to throw out.
We don't. He doesn't send anyone to hell. We do it to ourselves.
Yes. I like the way you put it. That's how I kind of feel.
So you're Orthodox then. Go report to the closest Orthodox church in your area.
Now I gotta start tithing regularly. Dale, thank you so much. Love this episode. Take care, brother.
You too.